education still continuing since yesterday, and I have a panel here of education experts from various quarters, and that is what we'll be discussing here. And remember, we are live from the broadcasting house here in the county of Nairobi and also on our social media platforms, and we would like you to also weigh in on this discussion in regards to matters education. According to you, do you believe that all the measures that have been done in the education sector are bearing fruits? That's a conversation that I would like you to weigh in on. My name is Njue, and Lensa Odingo is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. And without further ado, before I introduce my guest, there are a number of activities, because here at News Tech we ensure that we keep you afloat or abreast with all the latest happening in the country. But more or less today we're gonna lean on matters education, and the president is having his day in Nandi County, where we are expecting that he will be commissioning Tinderet, TTI and affordable housing at Kapsabet. Later on, he is expected to fully open there is a function actually of opening a person's test center in Westlands. The Africa Cup of Nations still continuing, and remember, your true sports partner, KBC Channel 1, all the matches, we're bringing them to you live from Ivory Coast. But away from that, let's get back to matters education. Beginning from my immediate left, It's not the first time he's been here. He is the director of God Will Provide. He is also a governance and leadership expert, and he's also a philanthropist. His name is Newton Ogada. Newton, karibu sana.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I haven't seen you this year. It's back to school anyway.
Thank you.
Just next to him, we have Benson Macero. Benson Macero is an educationist, and is also, you do remember that a lot of parents are talking about the harsh economic times while we are talking about education, where he's one of the guys who are trying to actually push for scholarships to ensure that all the needy but bright students get a chance to further their education. And just next to him, we have Hesbon Otieno. Hesbon is a Deputy Secretary General at the Kenya National Union of Teachers. Quite a discussion when we talk about teachers, and actually we talk about the education in the country, and how we have been able to more or less follow the recommendation that the task force will be, the task force that was established by the head of state. You will be telling us more about that, and especially, I'm quite sure, a lot of challenges in the education sector. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much. Asante sana, and jambo watazamaji.
Thank you. And just next to him is also not a new face here, is Silas David. He is the chairman of the Parents Teachers Association, also a crucial ingredient in the education sector. Well, gentlemen, karibuni.
Thank you. Thank you.
And let me begin with you, Newton, because you also have a school. And not only that, you do not go for scholarship. You don't get any funding from the government. Yours is your own source. But unfortunately, you have to support orphans and disadvantaged kids. How has it been, and especially back to school?
First of all, let me say thank you for inviting me for this serious discussion about education. This is the toughest month in the history of education sector. We, as the people who have been supporting many children who has no parents and those who are less privileged, it is not easy at all, because everything is high, and even the school fee from different schools are really high. So it's a big challenge that we are facing right now as we speak. And I don't know how we are going to manage it, because everything is kind of opposite. Life is difficult. Support to the children, there's no enough money now. And again, even to feed the children is not easy. So it's kind of difficult now as we speak. Yes.
Benson, you also run a program more or less related to what Newton is doing, and you're also a trained teacher. So you are actually feeling the heat as well. Tell us about back to school in your opening statements.
Yes, this is the week of back to school, and we've encountered different challenges in terms of parents being able to get onto the onboarding of the Form 1s. Resources are limited. The cost of living is so high, and you find that some parents don't even have the transport, the basic needs that the students need for them to be able to comfortably stay in school. So generally, it is we are still struggling to make sure that with the available little resources, we are trying to help those we can. But at the end of the day, of course, we look upon the government to give direction so that we achieve the 100% transition, without which we may not achieve that. Yeah.
And Bonasek Jen, looking at teachers, more or less, one of the biggest challenges that we've ever had, even in the 844, now we are in the KBC, has been the shortage of teachers. This is something that even your predecessors have always been talking about. Education has the biggest budget of any sector in the country, but we are still not there yet. Your opening statement.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to wish all the parents well who are taking their children to Form 1. Personally, I'm one of them. I took mine yesterday. And so what the parents are talking about taking children to Form 1, I'm saying real life experience. So I want to wish every other parents well as they are doing the same. And I also want to say that at least I had an experience of visiting about 3 schools which were doing admissions to Form 1, or rather those ones also which were preparing to admit students to Form 1. I want to thank the teachers for the arrangements they made to ensure that there is seamless receiving of students in the school, in terms of right from the time that the students arrived in school and the last batch, more so for those who are joining boarding schools. I saw in about 3 schools that I visited yesterday that the organization that the teachers did this time around was good. On the shortage of teachers, I want to say that this is still a challenge that we will have for quite some time. But I want also to thank the government, because last year the government was able to employ about 56,000 teachers. And we expect that this year, again, a good bunch of teachers will be employed, considering that at the point of employment of the 56,000 teachers, at then we had recorded a teacher shortage in public schools of about 116,000. So it was like we have done a half of it, though the employment, most of them were on interns basis and not permanent and pensionable. But when now we're dealing with the teacher shortage, we say that the government tried, they did a half of the shortage, but still that does not cure the shortage, because the shortage will always be there. We still have another bunch of teachers, and again we have other classes being introduced in the competency-based curriculum, as you know. And also there are also the transition through natural attrition. There are teachers who are leaving service and they need to be replaced. So the shortage is something that will be there. But I'm happy that the government is working on it, but still the shortage is something that we really need to think about.
And still on the shortage, we still have the quality of education, and especially of teachers. Now we have KBC, we've heard about junior secondary teachers as well. But we're going to be discussing that further, because there's a lot of issues that surround the teachers, including the motivation. Yeah, we've had a number of them talk about, now you gave us contracts, we were expecting deals in the January, but it's a good thing that you're here. We're going to be discussing that. And Silas, in your opening statement, I do remember the last time we were with you last week, we had a very short time to discuss about the back to school. It's a good thing that you're back, and there are 3 key issues that you raised. I still remember them. We're going to be discussing them, but it's back to school, and as you can see on your screen, we could say that the learners are excited to be back to be in a new environment, Form 1, but we also have the parents themselves. Yesterday I saw a parent who took his child to school with just the admission letter, not even nothing else. And the uniform that the kid had is what he was using in his primary school. It has been a very, very challenging year, especially for teachers in the 2024.
Yeah, I would say that it's a happy moment for parents, all of them, in the first place, because since COVID-19 is the first time that now again Kenya is getting back to the normal school calendar. So parents were looking forward to this kind of a moment. So in the first place, they are very happy about it. 2, what you are saying about a child going to school with a letter, without anything else, that's a child from a very serious parent. That's a child that looks forward to getting education, whether with or without money. He knows that it's his right to get education. So with shoes or without shoes, with a blanket or without a blanket, he has to be in school. So he took the right step, and I want to congratulate that parent for taking the child to school the way he was, because he went in totality with what he had. There are challenges we accept, but we want to say that parents have roles to play all the way. You remember when I was here last time, I told you that during the Christmas holidays, we kept on advising parents that they must be prepared for the opening of their children, and then also for those that are taking their children to Form 1. So we are sure that the parents were prepared, and now that the schools have opened, we carry on. Secondly, the government is trying what it can do. The government has done its best. I have seen in the media several members of parliament sitting in meetings in villages with the parents and offering scholarships. CDF scholarships have been given out. Capturing the funds by the government have been sent to schools. The government has done its role. So because of that, we are saying that the Kenyan government is committed to seeing that each and every child in this country receives equity and quality education. And therefore, we say that the government is valuing the education of the children, and therefore it values parents. At the moment, I can say that.
Yes, and
yes.
To pick from where David has left it, he has talked about the government has issued a capitation. He's talked about, of course, the NGCDF is helping out students, and also talked about scholarships. Newton, in your case, you don't have all that. You don't have capitation, you don't have CDF, you don't have scholarship. How are you managing to keep a school? And not only a school, you also even have a hospital and other learning facilities as well.
Yeah, let me first saying that what my colleague or my friend has said is somehow 50% of what is happening in the country. As we speak now, I'm very sure that most, like 80% of the parents are not they're not affording to take their children to school due to the life that we're living today, due to the system of education that we are receiving. You know, it's a pure transition from the 844 to the new curriculum that we are going through today. If you think about parents taking children to school, and the government has not provided even the books for the CBC. Recently we had 14 subjects, I think. Now they reduced the 14 subject without giving even the books. I'm running a school, and my school is going through a lot, even with parents, because sometimes we tell the parents, go back and buy these books, and these books are not yet there for the first place. Number two, I don't know how we are going to manage the sector of education, because it is the key that the government should look. The education and health, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, those are the key, those are the heartbeat of this country. But the way they are being led or lead, I don't know how we are going to manage to match the education system that has been there before. If you check on this, we are in a setup of a CBC whereby our teachers, the teachers that we need to teach these children, have not been trained. They have not been given full training. We are in a new transition. They are trying to adjust, and even the syllabus itself is not yet provided concerning what the teachers are going to teach in this school. We are in the second week of the opening. We just talk about the high school, but you know, we open school even for the primary, and we're in the second week. This second week, only 2 books are being funded. And in high school, the junior secondary, out of 14 subjects, we have only 2 teachers that the government has provided, with a contract which was supposed to end by the end of last year. And now I heard the government is still saying that they have to again have another contract for the next another 1 year, which now we don't understand the fate of the government concerning to education. So if I come back to my own school, you know, I'm paying my teachers from my own, and again, after that I'm trying to manage my school on my own. But I'm still approaching the difficulties because there is no materials to make our children learn. The children are in school from morning to evening, but we don't have enough books. Before they reduced the subject that the government brought from last year, we already bought books for this subject that they brought. And again, at a sudden, you find again, they reduced this subject, which means the books that we bought as parents are now not of use. I don't know whether we're going to throw them, or we're going to merge them. I still don't understand. So being now we have the gentlemen here, they can actually explain to us where we are heading with education in this country. Number 3, the CDF that my colleague or my friend has mentioned, if you go there, people are fighting because they're giving 10,000 to 5,000 shillings. When you go to public school, boarding school, you'll find the fees around 65, 58,000, depending on the management of the school. If you're being given 10,000 and you need 58,000, and you're telling us that these children are now, we take good care of them. You know, sometimes we need to find a way on what or which ministry we need to give proper money and management. So to me, I'm still feeling we are not doing good in education sector, and I am not happy with what is going on. I wish we could have actually, or the president or the management could actually come up with an idea, the one that Kibaki brought. Because Kibaki brought like free primary and again free secondary education. If you go to public school day school, they said it is free because the government is trying to provide a little bit of money. But again, there are still things that the parents must give out. So to me, I'm still not seeing if we are in good condition on the management of education. And
Benson, looking at what Newton is talking about is a very pertinent issue, because some schools, the fee structure itself, the bursaries, the scholarship, they are not quite there yet. And talking about the scholarship and more or less on the NGCDF by the MPs, some counties and some constituencies, the bursary is working very well. You have a case in Murang'a where students only have to pay 1,000 shillings. This is something that an idea that should be replicated in other counties as well, and also in other constituencies, don't you think?
Yeah, I do think so. You know, the CDF money, I know there was the debate the other day in Parliament that a bulk of it should go to education. And indeed, as a country, we have to invest in education if we have to achieve, for example, the Vision 2030. Without serious investment in education, then it becomes, it becomes a joke. Because, for example, what is the criteria, perhaps at this constituency level? How are these money distributed? You know, we are politicizing everything. Whoever knows someone gets the biggest share, whether they can afford or not. So I don't really understand, but then the legislators, the people in charge of this, the CDF managers, really have to relook at it, because if you want that constituency to develop, if you want that ward to develop and have people who can be resourceful, it is just important that we invest in these people by giving sufficient allocation to these to this front, so that these students can be able to get a chance to go to school. Of course, as he's just said, there are challenges at the CBC level. For now, we are focusing on the other level here. I understand as an educationist, there's a need to review the curriculum. And I applaud the late President Mwai Kibaki for bringing free primary education. That was in 2003, yes, around there. But that time, the stakeholders, the people around the president, did they project, for example, how are we going to transition these students, because the numbers are quite high, as we move to the other level? At that particular point, there was a change within the subjects within the 844. Remember, there used to be 7. We had art and craft, GXC and all that. Then someone collapsed everything into social education, and then we remained with the English, Kiswahili science, and yeah. So there was the change. Were we prepared? Again, now, recently we came up with the CBC. I want to know from the experts, what really are we doing? Because for now, we seem to be politicizing everything. When there's a new government, we tend to shift and change things without considering the impact. The previous regime was talking about having the junior secondary housed in the current high schools. There were resources that were used to build extra classrooms. The current regime has shifted it back. So there is talk of some, is it 12 billion to build 15,000 classrooms in the current primary schools. So which way? Are we investing correctly? Are we having prudent use of resources? These are the questions we need to ask as a country. We need to rally behind a cause that we all believe in, whether the government is different or is still the same. Yes.
Bonasek, very pertinent issues that have been raised by the two gentlemen, and teachers always are on the receiving end of everything. Let's start with the contracts themselves. The government had more or less promised from January of 2024, these teachers, the 56,000 teachers that you've mentioned, were going to be having a PNP, permanent and pensionable basis. Now they have to wait for another 1 year contract. This is something that as a union, Kenya National Union of Teachers, you are quite objected to, right?
Let me first of all start from the situation that we have here.
Yes.
Let us come out of the book of lamentation in the Bible, and let us come up with as people who are in the education sector, and let us also not underlook upon ourselves that we don't have the expertise to contribute in the changes that are happening in the education sector. My colleagues here, we don't have better experts than yourselves, because we are all stakeholders in all this, and it is good that all of us have a background in education, either as an investor or as somebody who can sponsor. I'm happy my friend is a teacher with that kind of a background. I know my brother, a parent chairman, who is very passionate with the issues of education. And we have reached a level whereby we want to see the education of our children succeed in Kenya. And here we have a situation whereby we are within the competency-based curriculum, and we have to see it work for our children. Because if we keep on pointing fingers left, right, and center, we might not be addressing what we should address.
And it's also still on it. It is still also good to note that even on the free primary education in 2003, we also had challenges.
Yes, it's good that you know that those challenges, the transition challenges, that is when the gates of the schools were opened and every child was supposed to access school because of free primary education. And this is also a universal call that it is a basic right. And even the transition at 100% after children have reached maybe class 8, and even maybe now we're talking about grade 6 and the rest. These are things that we should work with because we know that they are there. So the only thing that I can say is how do we mitigate to ensure that everything goes right. First of all, I want to say that at the point of the entry to Form 1, the challenges that parents have is very common. It is not a new challenge that is coming in terms of the hard economic situations. These have always been there, and parents have been facing it, and it is because maybe the circumstance in Kenya is that education is being made expensive, and that is why we have a very serious call that education should be the government's duty to ensure that our children get education because it is a basic right. So they should invest more. So I should support all the calls that are saying that more of government's budget should go towards education as a prerequisite for all the developments of all the other sector. That should be done. Then the parents also have their role, just like the parents, the chairman has said. Even personally as a parent, I have my role to play. And I think I did what I could yesterday. Other parents have done what they can. We can not all do within the same level. And that is why we insist that the managements of the schools should also understand. And I'm happy yesterday, I even had another discussion elsewhere, and we said, let the teachers who are receiving the students, the schools that are receiving the students, understand the kind of economic hardships that the parents are having, such that they don't put stringent and expensive measures that will not enable the children to access schools. And I'm happy, I'm telling you, I visited schools and I saw the arrangements that some of these schools I visited had put in place. I did not see any parent being harassed to go back because maybe a child had missed one or two things, which is a good thing. But even in our thinking, even as the schools are doing that, we should look at a way in which we can circumvent and ensure that the school still gets things that can enable it to operate so that it can provide quality. So I think we should move towards that direction. CBC is a big discussion in Kenya, introduction of CBC. Even the training of the teachers, retooling of the teachers, which if we open it, it is a big discussion. And I would wish that even as we're discussing that, we should be very objective, because it is here with us. We cannot run away from it. And that is why we encourage that everybody now should be very positive to think about how do we ensure that the teachers have the capacity to deliver CBC. What does the government give to ensure that the CBC succeeds? My colleagues have talked about infrastructure, the provision of classrooms. My colleague has talked about the classrooms that were built at secondary school. And we looked at if each and every secondary school, and the number of secondary schools are below 20,000. And the children were coming to primary schools which are over 115,000 in the whole of the Republic. Even if these secondary schools were given one classroom each, the way the late Professor Magoha did to all these schools, the transition to secondary school could not happen. That is why we had to use the facilities that were available at primary school, and that should be understood. And even the provision of the amount of money that will enable to build the classes that will accommodate grade 9 next year, because now we are at grade 8. That is the big discussion that we are having now. So wherever this is domiciled, like in primary school, to me, I think is okay, because there is also the financial aspect of if you were to provide the same facilities at another level, what would it entail and what would it cost? So I think these are things that we should look at and we should work with, so that we ensure that there is no serious debate of where, what did you do and what. Now coming to the employment of teachers, first of all, I have appreciated the number of teachers that the government employed the way I did, and the promise that they were to be employed on permanent and pensionable contracts. It normally goes for 1 year. But also let us look at the situation whereby what resources does this government have now? You see the government crying left and center. And the president himself made a pronouncement and he said, let us serve us for this another 1 year, and then let us look at the situation of employment on permanent and pensionable. So let us work within the levels of saying, how do we work to ensure that solutions are found, even as our children are not missing what? Education.
You said that you, as teachers, you're comfortable with what happened and the extension of the contract to 1 year?
You see, I might not be happy. Just like your child might not be happy that you're not providing the best in your house that the child should get. But you're looking at, what circumstance am I in now? If you even push this government to employ these teachers, and there are 56,000, subtract about 4,000 who are given permanent and pensionable. The rest are still on intern. And the government has to look at resources to turn all this into permanent and pensionable. Look at the magnitude, the financial magnitude that it entails, vis-a-vis the budget that the government has, and the strains that are being thrown left, right, and center. We are not absolving the government from doing what it's supposed to do. But we are saying, if you are giving promises to these teachers that after this year, the economy will improve and you will give them the permanent and pensionable stature, then stick to your words this time round, and let us see you putting efforts to ensure that there, if it is taxes are collected in a good manner and there are no loopholes for corruption, so that we have enough resources that will ensure that at the end of this year, all those teachers who have not enjoyed the permanent and pensionable status will get it. There is something that was misleading, because these teachers were saying we might not report to school in January because we have not been employed on permanent and pensionable basis. But they remember that their contract ended on 31st of what? Of December. Now, it means that when we were transiting to first, then they have no contract. There is no contractual obligation. So there is no way you can now go and say that I want to go on strike on somebody you have no contract about. So it would be safer for them to have this renewal of the contract, because it can safeguard their next level of bargain. And that is what we have kept on telling them. Let us, you accept these letters, have them, because it will give us platform. It is us, the unions, who will come up and say, these teachers have served this country for 1 year, for 2 years, and they now need to be employed on permanent and pensionable basis. I personally participated in the year 2011 when the first contractual teachers were employed in 2010 and they were confirmed in 2011. As Kenya National Union of Teachers, we took to the streets. We are the ones who mobilized because we have that recognition agreement with the employer.
Yes.
So we are the ones who mobilize all the teachers, even those who are already on permanent and pensionable, to fight for their colleagues who are on contractual basis. And they were eventually confirmed as permanent and pensionable. So people should understand the space within which they operate, so that you don't lose what you have because of a fight that will technically throw you out.
Okay, so the intern teachers should first of all look at the glass half full as the government works to make sure that the glass is full. Bwana Chair, picking from where the section has left it, and the parents indeed are quite pressed, and he says it's not a new occurrence, and especially in January. But I do remember even the last time we were speaking with you, some schools are not accepting students fast because of the harsh economic time. They actually want at least the parents to put some, even if it's 70% of that, before they can admit children back to school. This is something that the ministry is talking about. We shouldn't. All students should be allowed to school. The government has sent some capitation which actually schools should be working on as now. I would like to pick your mind on that. Allowing schools, all of them students, to allow students back to school, and then the parents can work their way through the finances.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank my friends on what they have discussed. It's making sense. And I want to pick on one thing that I heard from my friend Osborne here. First of all, we don't have to engage education in terms of politics. You know, I have always gone repeating and saying that parents own schools in this country. Schools don't belong to the government, they belong to parents. But it's only that the parents are not fully informed on that. And that's why there's the issue of parental empowerment and engagement, for the parents to be trained, to be informed, for us to create awareness. And that's why now I'm in this office now. That's my work. So I'm trying to work with the government to create awareness on parents to understand what are exactly their roles in the education sector, more so towards the provision of the education for their children. Before I comment on that, I come with the issue of teachers on contract. Let me begin from there first of all. Husband has explained this clearly, that the teachers that were on contract, I read their letter of contract, and it was only up to 31st of December 2023, and that marked the end of that contract. There was no section saying that after 31st of December 2023, the teachers will be on PNB, or they'll be again contracted. So the government, having given these teachers a job first, they should be very happy, because there are millions and millions of teachers outside here who are highly trained and qualified and have no employment. But these ones were picked, the 21,500, and they were given that contract for 1 year, which again, the head of state, President himself, has agreed that it should be again renewed for another 1 year. And these teachers stay at home again and wait now to look for what? Permanent and pensionable employment in the future. You know, after their contract, actually, they should have gone home, because there's nothing in an agreement that's saying that they have to go to work. But now, the head of state looked at this and said, no, these are my children. Let them go back again, get another 1 year of contract. 2025, they'll be on PNP kind of paper. Personally, these teachers came to me. They have been in my office. And they wrote me letters. They complained that parents are going to suffer, we should not go to class. But we sat and discussed, and we came to an amicable solution that they go back to class. I was the one who convinced those teachers to go back to class, and they went, because I'm a parent number 2 from the president. Yeah, so president is number 1 in terms of parenting, because you know that. The issue of parents going to school and having been asked to pay 70%, 80%. There was a circular from the PS last year, and that circular is still in force, saying that parents should go to school and agree with the principals or the heads of schools, school management boards, on how fees can be paid in installments. That is a leeway to the parents to go to school and even say, I can only afford 50 shillings per month, and I will pay it like dowry. You won't get finished until it's all over. So once you have that door as a parent, why do you keep a child at home and say, you have no money to take the child to school. And the government has given that leeway.
But Chair, to be very honest with you, we've seen even the news yesterday that some students were turned away. I saw
I'm coming
a
to
story
that.
in Buruburu.
I'm coming to that.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm trying to explain where the government is heading to. The government is committed to providing education to these children. So that's why the PS gave that circular as the government that heads of institutions should not turn away students to go back home because of school fees. But the parents have to go to school and commit in writing how the fees will be paid, because principals cannot run schools without money. There are lots of millions of shillings balances. This is government money. And by the way, let me tell you, when a parent takes a child to school like the way Esmond did yesterday, he read the letter, the instructions were there that he will pay fees. He went and committed himself to pay fees. Now Esmond takes the child to school and then he runs away. He leaves the wife to go to school every day, taking the child, telling the principal, oh, Mzee is not around, my husband is not there, we don't have fees. Both parents must be committed. Even when taking children to school, let both parents go. The man and the female parent take the child to school. Then they commit in writing how the balances will be paid. So what has happened is that parents took advantage of that cycle of the PS of saying that you go to school and commit yourself to the principals, and the principals should not send children at home. Now to keep off, because they knew that with the cycle in place, principals would not send children away. So the only alternative that happens is that when parents don't show up in school, there is no way that the principal can keep the children in school. They must go and bring the parents. And that's why you saw the children going back at home. Because parents bring the children up the gate and tell them to go to school and say you don't have fees. Now they're asked by the principals, where are your parents? They just send us to school. That is ignorance. That parents need to have that awareness. So we cannot blame the government. We are telling parents, go to schools and open up to principals, discuss the issue of fee payment, commit it down. Principals cannot run schools without money. The other question, the question on CBC. Let me now come to CBC from my brother there. We are just in the new transition of taking over the new system of CBC. It has not picked up. We are still now picking up. A child is not born today and tomorrow the child is walking and climbing trees. The child takes a process.
Okay. And we're going to be discussing a lot more in regards to the curriculum, because that is part of the education reforms in the country.
Yes.
But we need to cross over to Mombasa, where my colleague Ann Mburu is currently at the Mama Ngina school. We're keeping tabs with what is happening, especially with the Form 1 admission. Good morning, Ann Mburu from Mombasa. Tell us how things are at Mama Ngina.
Good morning to you, to Ben Troy Njue, back at Broadcasting House, and I'm coming live to you from Mama Ngina Girls High School in Shanzu, Mombasa County. And today being day 2 of the Form 1 admissions ongoing, I'll be joined by the Chief Principal, Mwanamisi Omar, just to tell us how the process has been and how they've been admitting and how many students they will be admitting for the Form 1 registration in Mama Ngina Girls High School. Karibu sana on set. Maybe you can begin with your names and tell us about the admissions, how the whole process has been from yesterday and today. As you can see behind us, the admissions are still ongoing.
Yeah, my name is Mrs. Mwanamisi Omar, the Chief Principal, Mama Ngina Girls High School. We've been admitting Form 1 since yesterday, and the process is very smooth. We began yesterday. Quite a number of them reported yesterday, over 200 of them. We expect some more today. Being a boarding school, you know, there's quite much that the parents have to get for the boarding items, so they are still looking for them. Most of them are calling to say that they are here in town, in Mombasa, getting some of the items, but we believe by the end of the day, today, we will have about 250 of them. We may go up to around 300, though that will be a bit of a stretching for us because we are in a new school and the capacity of the dome is not as big, but at least we can accommodate between 250 and 300 girls.
Maybe have any parents come with the idea of having to pay the school fees in installments because of the harsh economic times that you're facing right now? Are you allowing them to continue admitting their kids?
Of course, several of them are coming with that kind of requests that because of the harsh economic times and because of the purchasing of the boarding items, they are requesting that they pay the fees in installments. Yeah, we quite agree with them and come up with a plan, but at least they should pay a good amount. But as much as possible, we understand them. We are not turning them away. As long as somebody has come, a parent has come with something. Yeah.
Have you received any needy cases that maybe they do not have school fees, they do not come with anything that they're supposed to have in school?
Of course, yes. There are quite a number that are very needy even from their shopping. You know, you can tell from the items that they have brought. Yesterday, we received one that did not have anything. She came with the mother, but fortunately, she was picked up by one of our board members. So she's the one who actually facilitated everything for her, gave money for shopping. She was taken for shopping by our school librarian. And in the evening, she came and settled down in school. So we thank God for her. She's such a bright girl. She scored 381 marks, but from a very humble background. But she's now in school. Yeah.
Now that it's a new school, and maybe you could tell us if there's any capitation that you've been given by the government disbursed, and then you can also assure parents now that they are new students and this is a new school. Any assurances to the parents of having taken care of the kids?
Yeah, we were given some bit of capitation last week, and we are grateful for that because that will start us off. I believe some more will be given by our good government. So far, what I can tell the parents is that from them, we just need prayers because it is God that will take us through in this very new school. As you know, a new home has a lot of challenges. But together with the girls, we will live with the challenges, and I'm sure with time we will overcome. But I want to say that we don't have much of challenges. We have all the basics. The learning areas are in place. The boarding area is okay. The cooking area is okay, and you know those are the most important places. So all those are okay. We have plenty of water. We have plenty of electricity. So we are good to go. Yeah.
Just as we had the principal has just said that everything is going on smoothly. They will be expecting at least 300 students to be admitted at the Form 1 classes in Mama Ngina Girls. Back to you in studio, Njue.
Thank you, Ann Mburu, live from Mama Ngina there, and she has engaged Mwanahamisi Omar, the chief principal of that school. And it's a good thing that Bonachea, exactly what we've talked about is what they have talked about, and the chief principal has talked about. They have not sent away any student because of lack of fee. And the capitation that we've just mentioned that the government released last week, it's changing. It's a game changer in regards to some of those schools that the students do not have any money. I would like you to touch on that as a parent and also as a chair of the PTA.
Okay, I was saying this, I will come to address that issue. First of all, let me go from where I stopped. I was saying that when it comes to CBC is like a newborn baby who is now being taken care of to come up.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about the education reforms because, of course, there are a number of reforms in the education sector, yes. Also including reduction of subjects, you know.
Yes, I'm coming to that. I'll address all that. So I'm saying that with the CBC, we need to understand that the government is doing what it can do and try to provide by all means. Yeah, the issue of textbooks, as my brother said, and new subjects, these are changes that we are expecting because you all feel that the number of subjects that the students were carrying at CBC were too many. 12 subjects for an 11-year-old child. Those are many subjects. And the curriculum designers thought it wise that they reduced the subjects to 9. And because of that now, there's what we call infusion. That the subjects are being infused. They are being put like combined together. Maybe like science and whatever it is in one book. So for now, the printers of the books are working to have the books in time in schools. Secondly, the only books that were being used, they have the same subjects. It's only that what's happening now is now that infusion of books, combining of the books. And now you have more text for that. But in the real sense, the books are in schools, they have the subjects, they have all the information. So the old books that were there can still be used as the new ones are coming in. So that is not a very big crisis that we can talk about right now. Although, I may also say that parents have not been asked to buy any new books as far as CBC is concerned from the government. Unless those in private. But those in public schools, the government is going to supply books and it has been promised. The issue of subjects is normal. We reduce them. They have to be reduced even for the teachers to be able to mark, to assess the children, and also for the students to be able to do work and even complete assignments given at home. So that one is good news to the parents. On funding of capitation,
yes,
the government cannot have enough money for everybody, even and not only Kenya. There is no government in the world, and the husband will tell you as an education expert, there is no government in the world that can provide education free for its children. In the whole world. Even America, which is the superpower country, it can't do that. And that's why there's cost sharing. And our government has given cost sharing on a very soft kind of a platter that the parents can share with the government. For example, the government is giving about 20,000, 22,000 shillings to the students at the secondary school level. Parents are paying 20,700 for term 1. Now look at that. If a parent has been given a leeway of going to agree with the principal in the school, as you have heard from Mombasa, they go and agree, and they can pay in installments. And you can see the principals are very soft, and they are very good, and they are promising that they come and agree on what they can pay. So the parent has that time to go and do the clearance of the fees. However, we are saying that in the future, let the government think of also increasing these funds, so that at least that 20,700 can come to something like now 5,700 to a parent, but the rest of the lot is taken by the government. That's what you are calling for. The government CDF to the students. Let also members of parliament fight in parliament to have that money increased when they do the budget allocations, so that they also get enough money to fund the students in their areas who cannot afford to fund education. Having said that, what is the role of parents in the education sector? We must teach parents that it's not always politicians who will meet the needs of their children in the school. It's we parents who must understand that we are the ones who give birth to these children. They are our children, and we must take care of them. So parents ought to be educated to understand what are their roles. One of the roles is feeding the children, health roles, providing sanitation facilities, and then also taking the children to school in terms of the cost sharing that the government is doing. So the government has done its part.
All right. And from where the chair has talked about Newton, and I will quote what the SecGen said, that we should move from the book of Lamentation maybe to the book of Revelations and look at the reforms that the government has initiated. It has made, we've switched from the 844 to the CBC, and a reduction in subjects, which, with all fairness, is a reduction of equipment, books, and even attention for our young. I'd like you to point out on that.
Thank you. Once again, I don't want us to politicize when it comes to, or make politics when it comes to education. This is a government which is being run by all ministry and all departments, and I want to disagree with few quotes that they said. Number one, there is no way to debate on a student or a pupil who is already in class. We need to find a way before they go to class. We had a long holiday, 2 months, and all the ministries knew that when it comes to January, we are going to have opening of the schools. It is unfortunate to understand that the children belong to the parents. Of course, I knew on myself that anybody who is being born in Kenya belongs to this government, because it's our birthright to be Kenyans, and the Ministry of Education belongs to Kenya. Let me say that according to what I'm seeing in the Ministry of Education, it's not a matter that we need to discuss while children are suffering. We are in the second week of opening. We are still discussing on how we want to improve the new curriculum, CBC, while already the children are in class. Number two, I'm doing management morning to evening for the past many years. We don't need to implement new system of development in this country before we reorganize or build what we have. Whatever we are doing here, we are doing it, but the education is still the key to anything that we are going to implement in this country. When we are talking about the CBC, or because I heard now those who are entering from one, there's a discussion between parents and schools, which I agree, because even me, myself, my son, the third one joined from one yesterday in Omo Bay, boys. So we had some agreement. That one I agree 100%. But when it comes to management of education, for example, the CBC that we are talking about now, we should not wait until we implement the curriculum before we discuss. If last month, which was last year, we were having those 11 subjects, and then this year, a month later, we reduce without even having public participation, because I heard them saying the parents belongs to the children.
I believe some of these things stem from the task force that was initiated by the president as soon as he got into power in regards to the education reforms?
That's where I'm coming from. The task force, they were not being brought from United States of America or Tanzania or Uganda. There are our people here. That's why I'm trying to explain that the first thing we need to do before implement any system in all the sectors, we must have what we call the public participation.
All right.
We must
just
make
a minute.
sure.
Kindly hold the thought. I'm informed that the Ministry of Sports CS, Ababu Namamba, is currently having a discussion, immediate engagement at the Talanta Plaza. Let's first of all listen in.
Olympics, you have already announced your partnership with Tusker. So can we take this opportunity to thank EABL for being the first partner to come on board? Asante sana EABL. You did not clarify whether it is money or it is something else. No, but even the something else is okay. So something else is also welcome. So EABL, asanteni sana. Na nyinyi pia tunataka kuona pesa yenu in football more strongly. Of course, we know you have a team called Tusker FC. It could be, someone was telling me that your Tusker brand is consumed in a certain corner of Kenya, I don't want to name it, more than any other corner. And that corner of Kenya has a football team that is really struggling. Please appreciate that corner of Kenya by picking up that team alongside Tusker FC. Thank you very much and have a fantastic day.
At Sports CS Ababu Namwamba there at the Talanta Hela Plaza, the Ministry of Health, a number of sporting activities, including some of which we here at KBC are actually televising, including the Africa Cup of Nations, among others. But for more, we will be having that in our subsequent bulletin. But for now, let's have a quick break. We'll be right back with this discussion. Remember, your feeds, your suggestions, your questions, your weighing in right here on social media KBC. We are live on our social media platforms.
Habari njema kutoka redio yako pendwa ya Ingo FM kwa wakazi na mashabiki wa Bungoma. Sasa Ingo FM inasikika Ingo Bungoma kupitia masafa ya 103.5 FM. Sikiliza na uchangie, burudika ukifurahia uhondo wa kipekee kwa lugha ya nyumbani.
Awamu ya Baragawi CC Natural Sweetness.
Kadhalika, tegea Ingo FM ukiwa maeneo ya Kakamega, Busia, Vihiga na Trans Nzoia kupitia 101.5 FM.
Isenikoli umwana wa kwendo mkhana wa imoni dalano mbonyala kunanga KK.
Ingo FM, ininginingi ye Muitala.
Welcome back to KBC News Check, and thank you so much for keeping us company. We are looking at matters education. There's back to school, there's the Form 1 admission, and of course this year we have the education reforms, which among others have recommended that some of the subjects be merged and some have been done away as well. That is exactly what we are looking at, and remember, you keeping us company on our social media spaces. Do you believe that the current education reforms that we have bearing fruits in the current regime? And remember, in the 2003, when the government announced, President Mwai Kibaki actually announced that the country is going to be having free primary education. There were a number of challenges, but I believe over the years we've been able to cover a lot of those challenges as well. And before we went for that break, and also we went for that live briefing by the CS, we're talking about the education reforms. In regards to now mostly some of the subjects have been more or less clustered together, so that to make it not only easier for the learners, but also parents as well.
Yes, thank you. You know, when we were talking about it, there are many things that we don't see behind it. CBC is not about even the reduce of the subject that has been done. But you know, when the CBC came, we came with making our schools to have equipments like music club, like swimming pools. All those things were coming, and building even other classrooms, which actually we failed to do. The government failed to do it. So me, as a person who is running a private school, I'm trying to put things in place, but it's too expensive even for the parents to participate on the things that the education need for their children. Number two, I was talking about the contract that were given for our teachers. You know, let me correct some statement here. The teachers belong to the government. They don't need to beg for contract or employment when their time reaches. When you're dealing with employment and you promise some people that I'm going to confirm you permanent in the next 1 year, which means the Ministry of Education or whoever is managing that docket has already had a meeting and check on their budget for the next year, so that you can utter a word or announce what you're going to do. Because when you at the back of your mind, you know what is in the budget. But if that time comes and then you are coming again to tell us, now we're not going to give you the contract because of the economic situation in the country, which means maybe somebody who promised these teachers to be given contract was a different person from the same government, which now are
but
telling
with all fairness, looking at the economic turmoil that the country has undergone, and the government itself, the government has said that indeed our coffers are kind of empty. But wait for 1 more year. The SecGen has mentioned that it was a similar situation in 2010, and those teachers were confirmed and given permanent and pensionable after what, 2 years, 2 or 3 years?
2011.
2011. Yes.
So that's 1 year. 2011, that's almost 2 years. And again, when we talk about economic situation in this country, somehow I don't understand what we are talking about, because it's the same government which is running building house initiative with all the money that we are giving out as task. What if we could actually think of, can we just pay tax to make sure that we stabilize the Ministry of Education so our children get proper education with all enough money to manage the education system? Number three, what I'm still not comfortable with, we don't need to play. We have two things that we cannot play with. You cannot tell a patient who is admitted at the ward that the medicine that you are supposed to be treated with, we are still thinking or doing research on how it can be mixed to treat your disease. There's no point of us discussing now on how we are approaching a transition, and our children are in school, and we are still thinking on what was not made right for a person who already in the school sitting, waiting for the teacher to come and teach. Number three, last term, we had all this subject. Now, I heard they're being combined in one to reduce the number of subjects that the children are going to learn. If we combine them, we're still giving this child a heavy task to do, because it's just 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 in one book. You know, there's nothing that we are doing.
You know,
So
that the
before
ones
I
who are
finish,
learning, not us. We are actually.
when I was talking about this, you can just give me
I
time,
believe because
the
I
time
know
they were discussing, I was quiet, and I was listening to the points that I want to discuss in this matter. We are not fighting. We are not in different political groups.
Very true.
But we want just to make sure that we talk with the Minister of Education, because even my colleagues are not coming from the same. They're just standing in to represent the parents and the school and the children that we are talking about. What we want to do, we want to polish it for us to come out with something. I was talking about what we call going back to the community and talking with the parents. You know, before we go to this new transition, there was no proper engagement between those who were sitting, maybe 20 people in a panel, to discuss the whole education changes for the whole country. We were supposed to go back to the school and we discussed. I remember before we come to CBC that is now giving us stress, there was a lot of discussion. I was here to discuss about it. When the parents were saying this thing is too expensive for us, we are not going to manage it. The government itself said here that we are not going to manage this because it is too expensive. I was so happy when Ruto took power. Because he mentioned during his campaign that we are going to reorganize and we're going to have a discussion on the CBC. Those are the things that he was campaigning about. Yeah. When he collect the people together to start discuss about this, to me, I was jumping, saying, this is now my president. He's going to make sure that we go back to our 844 when we are organizing for the new transition.
All right. No, because the train has already left the station. We are no longer.
That's why I'm coming. That's why I'm coming. So before we utter words, like I'm happy that the president and this country managed to employ 56,000 teachers. That is correct. I have no problem against it. But even out of these 56, we still only have 2 teachers in a school, a setup of a school. We have primary, which now we don't have the other curriculum that we had. But there were things that we were supposed to be put in place before the class 6 transition, class 7 join schools, which is now junior secondary. These things are not there. And it is confusing the old system of the parent. You have a primary school, and the same primary school, we have those who are still putting on the uniform for primary, and the same primary school, we have another student or children, I don't know how to call them now. They're having a different type of school uniform. The teachers are not there. So when we are talking about education, my friends, it's not about which political grouping you are coming from, or which church are you coming from. We are talking on something that is affecting the whole country, our grandchildren, our children, and even the people who are coming tomorrow.
All right.
So my contribution to this, before another person take over, is to organize and harmonize. And if this ministry can sit down again and put things in place, than sending the teachers to school and there are no proper system which has been put in all the schools that we are running.
And maybe let me go to the SecGen, because you, as a union, you are part of the presidential task force on education reforms, and what he's talking about is some of the things that some parents raised. Some see CBC as glass half full, some see CBC as glass half empty, and there were even some discussions in regards to CBC reforms. As we do the reforms, there were some parents, just like he's mentioned, that wanted us to go back maybe to the 844. But as I've said, the train has already left the station. We are geared toward the CBC. Some of these challenges in the education reforms.
Let me say this, that first of all, as a union, we were not part of the task force. Okay. And we were happy to be out.
You are not represented in the task force?
Yeah, no, we were happy to be out so that we could give our views.
Okay.
And we really did give our views. We did our research, we did a presentation, and we gave our views to the task force, which was good. So that one, I'm correct in something about public participation. That when the Presidential Working Party went out, were given the task of looking at the challenges of the competency-based curriculum, they went through the process as it is required, including public participation, where people were given room to state what is not working or what was working. And out of that finding is the recommendations that they gave. Remember, the task force was not supposed to go and sit down and come up with recommendations, their own recommendations. They were supposed to get views from the stakeholders, including owners of private school. I'm happy my brother is managing one. And so out of their views, they they collected the facts that made build up to the recommendations that we are having that are being applied, and know that some of the recommendations can directly be applied because they do not have legal implication, change of law, while there are other recommendations that cannot be effected until some legislation is done for them to apply. So that is a process. So the issue of saying that there was no public participation, it was there.
Maybe not adequate?
Okay, I don't know of the measure of adequate, but the room was there was public participation, including every other person. And the recommendations came out. And you see, recommendations, when they come out, they might not suit every other person because maybe what I wanted, part of it did not go to the recommendations. Then let us come to the second place of what we call curriculum designs. Because personally, I sit down in 2 committees at KICD, which deals with curriculum designs.
Yes.
Even as late as last week, we were looking at some of the designs that have been developed in some of the subject areas as have been recommended by the workforce, and the KICD is working on the designs that are going to implement the new changes. So the designs are already there, and they are coming out, and they will be used, and all the schools will have access. Then 3, the textbooks, just like my chairman had said, the differentiation is not that big in such a way that the textbooks that were there cannot be reused. It is just reorganization. Even in some areas where subjects have been combined, it is just picking something from what was in this subject and what was in this and applying it in the curriculum design. So let us know that this process is a process that is ongoing, and to me, I'm taking it very positively. And what I would urge my other colleagues here, most of those who are in the management of schools, and I'm happy. His school has not stopped operating despite all these challenges. He has been operating. So what he should tell us is what is this that he has done to ensure that with all these challenges, he's still on course and is still operating, and the things seem to be working at some level because they are not at zero. I'm only afraid that if he's lamenting so much and is owning a school, then I'm worried with the management of that school.
Okay, we'll give him a right to reply.
Yes, he'll have a right to reply, but I'm saying my view to it.
Yes.
That he should tell us, you see, like, I faced this challenge and this is how I have mitigated to come out of. And it can help the country. And when we're talking about the government, and we're talking about my PTA chairman has talked about the government and what the government is doing. When we talk about the government and the role of parent, know that all of us are government. The government is not zeroed on the management. All of us are government. So where we have a solution that we can help improve on something, let us bring it. That is why there is the parental support, and there is the teacher support, there is every other support. And lastly, about the teachers and implementation of CBC. Yes, some schools have been given 2 teachers, others have been given 3 teachers, and as a union we know the challenges that the teachers are having. But we have been encouraging our teachers to go out, because even in those teachers who are referred to as primary school teachers in quote, some of them have the capacity to teach in the CBC class, because the CBC class is simply grade 7, grade 8, and these teachers, some of them have degrees, they have gone to the university, some of them have been retooled. Others are expert in some of these areas. And those who are trained the time I was trained as a teacher, remember the training of 844. And if you look widely at the differentiation between the 844 and the CBC, the gap is very thin in terms of what the 844 had seen those years that we were training and what is happening now. Because if it is the technical aspects, when we were in college, we were trained the technical issues about the woodwork, the music, the art and craft, the home science, music, all those things. So the teachers who are within the generations that I have it, I just need to be retooled a bit, to be refreshed, to go and apply the same in grade 7, grade 8, and grade 9. So in these schools, we have the capacity. What we have always been encouraging teachers, don't let the students remain untaught. Go teach. And that gives us as a union a bigger platform to say, now that they are teaching, recognize their upgrades, because there are those who have gone and attained higher qualifications. Recognize their degrees, recognize their diplomas, recognize their masters, because now they are applying. And now we go for what we call equal pay for equal work done, because they are giving a little more effort than what they are. So that is the level that I want us to understand, that this is where we are. The curriculum designs are being made, the textbooks are being approved, and everybody is up and working. So that we, and I want to repeat, so that as stakeholders in this field, yes, these challenges, we are working with them. We cannot go back to 844. If people are preaching about 844, let us forget. If we are leaving CBC, we will go to something else, a different curriculum, which will now take another
and it's a good thing that you the back and forth. I love it, because he will be able to tell us what are some of the adjustments that even schools have had to make. They have had to do with some things, they have had to adjust some things to actually to more or less like survive, because it's a good thing that you've mentioned that there's some schools that are actually surviving, and especially in the private sector. We will be talking about that, and Benson, you also will be weighing in on the education reforms. But first things first, let's cross over to the great county of Nandi, where my colleague Wycliffe Okech, as you can see him on your screen, is at the Nandi, at the Kapsabet boys in Nandi County, and brings us a live report in regards to the Form 1 admission and education as he engages the deputy principal. Over to you, Wycliffe.
Thank you, Ben from Nairobi. It is the Form 1 admission week, and what a wonderful interview you're having in studio regarding the transformation, the transition from the 844 curriculum system on to the CBC, that is characterized with the junior, secondary, and all the aspects that characterize it. Today we are looking at the situation as it is here at Kapsabet High School in Nandi. Like you've mentioned it is the week for the Form 1 admission, an exercise that kick-started yesterday. And I remember yesterday we came to leave viewers live from Kisumu as we were just conducting a spot check in various schools just to see how this exercise is begun and how it's going to pan out throughout the week, because we expect it to run throughout the week to enable parents actually to meet the requirements that are required for them to admit their children into the Form 1. We know that this is the last cohort of the last Form 1 actually admission under the 844 curriculum. And before I talk much about the transition, rather, let me just engage the deputy principal here at Kapsabet High School in charge of administration, Mr. Ronald Maniki, to paint for us a picture of how the situation has been since yesterday. How many learners did they receive, and today, how has it been? Like since we came here, there has been episodal change in the weather. There have been chill moments. There have been sun in duration, but then the children, the Form 1 being admitted here, have had to enjoy all that as they seek to quench their quest for knowledge. Let me just engage Mr. Ronald. Mwalimu, labda ukiangalia pale na tueleze exercise kama hii kuanzia jana imekuwa vipi katika shule hii ya Kapsabet High?
Asante sana. Kwa jina naitwa Bwana Mwaniki Ronald, Deputy Principal Administration katika shule ya kitaifa ya Kapsabet, na kwa niaba ya mwalimu mkuu ningependa kusema kwamba leo hali ya anga ni nzuri na tunashukuru. Jana kulikuwa kunanyesha sana mpaka mwendo wa saa 2 hivi, lakini leo hali ya anga ni safi kabisa, na jana tulipokea wanafunzi wengi sana, na hii imetokana na pressure kubwa ambayo tunapata kutoka watu ambao wanataka shule hapa. Tulikuwa natarajia kama shule tupate wanafunzi 475, lakini kutokana na pressure ya 100% transition, unapata wazazi wengi wanakuja wanataka nafasi hapa. Kwa kufikia jana tulipata wanafunzi 620, na kuna wachache ambao pia tunaona bado wanakuja, na labda juma hili kuna wale bado watazidi kuongezeka, na kuna wengine bado wazazi wanakuja kuomba nafasi hapa. Na kama shule tuna changamoto zetu. Tunapopata wanafunzi wengi tunakuwa na changamoto nyingi, hasa upande wa madarasa. mabweni na hata kwenye maabara na sehemu hata viwanja, kwa tunakuwa na hizo changamoto kwa sababu ya wingi wa wanafunzi. Hata hivyo tunashukuru sana, tuna wanafunzi ambao tulipata kiasi, na tunaona form 1 leo wanaendelea na shughuli zao. Kuna shughuli nyingine ambazo tunaendelea kwa shule za branding. Tunashukuru.
Labda tukiweza uliza, nikiangalia upande huu mwingine naona kuna wale bado hawajapata sare, na nikiangalia upande huu mwingine basi kuna wale tayari wana sare na pia vitu vingine ambavyo vinahitajika. Labda nikiuliza tu mambo kama sare, vitabu, wanafunzi hao wanazipata katika shule hii ama wanazinunua kule nje?
Kwanza wale ambao wanaona upande huu ni wale ambao wanaingia saizi, kwa wanaendelea na admission process, hawajamaliziwa. Tayari kuna wale ambao wamenunua sare zao kule nje, na kuna chache kwa wale ambao wameweza kusafiri kutoka sehemu mbalimbali, hawajajua pale pa kununua sare. Kwa kuna chache tu kwa upande wa shule ambapo tuna supplier wetu ambao ameweka hapa ili wapate kununua na watapewa zile sare. Imerahisisha pia kwa upande wa mzazi asije akahangaika kwenda mbali, lakini wengi walijinunulia sare zao kutoka maeneo ambapo wanatoka ili wapate kuja hapa katika shule yetu ya kitaifa ya Kapsabet.
Shughuli hii imeanzia jana, na pengine kuna wale wazazi hawataweza labda kuleta wanafunzi wao ama watoto wao hapa, maybe hawakuleta jana na pia leo pengine hawataweza kufika. Hebu tuambie, shughuli hii itaweza kuendelea wiki mzima, labda kuwezesha wazazi kufikisha watoto wao hapa?
Naam. Changamoto nyingine ambayo tumepokea hata kuanzia jana ni upande wa school fees. Tumekuwa na needy cases kadhaa jana, na hata leo kuna wale tunaona wameingia bado wana changamoto, na tunatarajia kwamba wanaendelea kuja tu hata mpaka Friday tutawapokea, na kuna kadhaa ambao hata wamepiga simu kuonyesha kwamba bado wanatafuta karo ndipo wakuje katika shule yetu. Kwa tuna kadhaa ambao wala hawajafika, inaonekana kwamba bado wana changamoto ya karo katika kufika shule yetu. Asante.
Na labda sasa labda ujumbe kwa wazazi, pengine wale hawataweza kabisa labda kupata hiyo karo ambayo inahitajika hapa ndio posa waweze kuleta watoto wao, unawashauri vipi?
Nitapenda kushauri wazazi labda wajikakamue popote pale walipo, wasije wakakaa tu na kuacha watoto wao wakakaa kule nyumbani, wajaribu kutafuta msaada popote pale wanapoweza. Tungependa pia kushauri kama kuna wadhamini wowote ambao wanaweza kuchukua watoto wakawasaidia. Pia tuna viongozi katika hasa maeneo bunge ama hawa wakilishi wa wodi. Kuna hii ambayo tunaita CDF, ikiwa wanaweza kupewa huo msaada itakuwa ni vizuri, ili wapate kuendelea na masomo yao, na hii itawasaidia sana wapate kuendelea, wasije wakaozea kule nyumbani, ilhali wana nafasi ya kuja kujiunga na shule na hata kugeuza maisha yao ya hapo baadaye. Kwa hiyo tunashauri sana wale ambao wanaweza kujitokeza, wahisani, hata marafiki, majirani, tafadhali tuwashike hawa watoto wapate kujiunga na shule mbalimbali ili wapate kuendelea na masomo yao. Nashukuru sana.
Asante sana mwalimu. Ben, that is Mr. Ronald Mwaniki, who is the deputy principal here at Kapsabet High School in charge of administration, talking to us about the entire exercise of Form 1 admission here at this learning institution. You've heard him mention that the exercise, of course, kick-started yesterday in a smooth way, and here at Kapsabet they were expecting 475. That is the number of Form 1s that were placed here. But then that number has grown because there have been requests from parents, from learners who were not placed here, but then they have the wish to join Kapsabet High, and also in that case, that is pushing that number from 475. Like you've heard him mention that yesterday alone they admitted 620, and that number keeps growing even today, and of course throughout the week. They expect the number still to continue growing because this is a national school, and it has to have that national outlook, and now they are opening that window for for even parents who are requesting for chances here at Kapsabet, but then they have to take care of the accommodation. They have to assess the accommodation availability and also the learning facilities in terms of classroom and also even the laboratories, so that they don't strain those facilities even as they absorb learners here at Kapsabet High. The process is smooth. Once the learners get there is a place for them to register and be issued with the uniforms and other available materials. Thereafter, they move to the background, the other side, which I believe you can see in the background. That is where the branding is happening. Once they have been issued with the necessary materials in terms of books and the writing materials and the uniform, they move to the other end where they get branded in terms of name by name, the streams and classes and dormitories. That is the exercise that is going on here at Kapsabet, just like any other school throughout this week. Well, Ben, that is it from Kapsabet. Let me hand it back to you over in studio so that you can continue that wonderful interview. Back to you, Troy.
Thank you so much, Okech, live from Kapsabet Boys in Nandi County. And just a quick one, the president is also in the same county where he will be expected to commission the Tinderet TTI, Technical Training Institute, and later on he is expected to commission affordable housing projects in Kapsabet. But a good thing, Kapsabet is taking a hive of activities there. But what do you expect from one of the top schools in the country? They are actually holding, continuing the admission of students. They're expecting 475, 620 students and more still are making private requests so as to join the same high school. But back to our discussion, and I want to touch on the education reforms so that we may give Newton some of a right to reply in regards to how schools have had to make do with a few things, or how are they surviving despite the harsh economic times. We're looking at the education reforms, and the CBC, now it's the train already left the station, and we are having some gains, and we're also having some changes in regards to some of the subjects that some of the students are having to do, and making their work easier, and even parents in regards to stationery, books, and some of these things. Okay,
the train left. We had changed the train anyway, but we are, I think, 3-4 years into the CBC from the onset, I think, and we seem to be struggling with changes. And this is why I said education is a very important component to any nation. So it must be delinked from the political intentions of the leadership. In fact, it should be a very independent thing, whereby reforms are a good thing in education, and they must be informed by what we want to achieve as a country. I know we are moving towards the knowledge economy. A lot is happening into the world of work, and it is because of the education systems that we put in place that Kenya will be at the top, of course, in the region and perhaps even in Africa in general. So as we make these reforms, are we what is informing our decisions? Of course, I am very sure that before we thought of a CBC, there was a reason, and there was maybe a very competent team of experts doing all these things. Of course, there were small issues. Personally, I was domiciled the junior school at the current primary schools. That was what should have happened. But then, of course, maybe the experts by then had another different view. But now we came back here. As we are here, remember, in the next 2 years, we'll be transitioning to senior school. And we have 1 year or so to plan so that we are not moving into a quagmire whereby people are now in limbo. They don't know what to do. This is enough time for us to realign and make sure that we are doing the right thing. I know Newton talked about the infrastructure. Those learning areas, for example, those who go to sports, we need the infrastructure in terms of swimming pools, basketball courts, stadium, and all that, so that the learners who are gifted within this line, they can have resources for them to be able to pursue their trade. So the only worry here is that anytime a government changes, we seem to be thinking of changing and having reforms. Okay, is it because we are changing a government, or is it we as a nation? Remember, as you said, we are the government. Governments are for the people, by the people, and of the people. So we are the ones, the parents, the children, and the stakeholders, to just like come and stay in one voice and discuss. Let us have a very serious discussion about what kind of reforms do we want to see. Because these children, for example, the current children who are in the middle of this CBC, the learning areas were 14, they'll be consolidated into, I think, 7. So it's a trial. These are like guinea pigs. By the time they are transitioning, it will be very hard for them to tell which is which. Of course, for every change
Benson,
comes
do you believe that these reforms are necessary, or maybe we could have let the strain first of all run for a couple of years before we initiate any reforms, according to you?
For any curriculum development, there has to be a very serious pilot. And that's what perhaps should have been done. Did we pilot sufficiently for us to be able to say now its systems go? Or are we piloting with the subjects? The people who want to help are the ones being used as pilots to try a system. So those who come after them might benefit from the system, but these ones might be disadvantaged because today they are doing this, tomorrow they are doing this. So I think we have to rethink as a nation seriously on how to be able to support these students who are in this transition phase. Otherwise, we will have a gap. Several years to come, there will be a gap of maybe like, these gaps come in after some time X. For now, we may not see that, but in the next 10, 15 years, even in the world of work, we'll realize the challenges that we have. I was seeing recently, there was a meme, the class of 2015 are now doctors, and people are making fun of it. If you recall, the class of 2015, they did KCSE, I think, in 2014, where we had a galaxy of A's. Everyone got an A or something. And then people are questioning, what is it? By then, people didn't see. Now we are seeing it, and employers are watching. We have to do it the right thing. There are no two ways on this.
And Newton, looking at the CBC, it's more or less result-oriented and hands-on as opposed to the 844. The infrastructure and resources are more required than than was the case in 844. Because, for example, when I was in school, if at all I had all the sporting facilities that I wanted, I'm sure I would be either in the sporting field or I would be in the sporting sector. But now there are a lot of things: classrooms, infrastructure, libraries, laboratories, and also the learning environment, despite the fact that this is something that we cannot say that CBC has been here for the last 10 years, so we can maybe take a few things from one side, take them to one side. We are still more or less like in the experimental stage. How have you had, more or less, being a private citizen who is operating a private school that doesn't get any government capitation or scholarship, have you had to adjust because of the harsh economic times as well?
Thank you. That's why I was stating here when I started that we are in a confusing state of education. Number one, we don't have a private child. We can only have a private school, but not a private child. I said my team were out there looking for the books, because now we're in the second week of opening, but the books are not yet there. If I can feel it from the private sector, what about the public sector? Because I heard the government said that the books are already in the printers and they will be out soon. Out soon after 2 weeks or the third week in classroom. Let me tell you when I'm concluding, that education is not something that we need to practice. That we don't need trial when it comes to giving a child education. As my learned friend said here, that the ones that now we are practicing on will have a big gap compared to those who will be coming. I have nothing against the CBC education system, but the preparation was not done in the correct way. When you want to transit from this year to another year, or this level to another level, then number one, you must first organize where you are heading to. It's like even building a house. We have those who construct their permanent houses with a strong foundation. They spend a lot of money before they build. And then they have the strong house. But if you just construct a house with cheap materials, that's why we have been having a falling of many houses even in this country. Education is like a strong foundation to any child. And that's why I said before we started, whether I'm running a private institution, I don't care. But I care on what we are going to give this child as a person. In my school setup, I had my friend here saying maybe he's worrying about my school. My school, me, I'm ready. I have swimming pool, I have library, I have computer, I have those things because I'm private. But the child that we are taking there is not private, it's a public child from this nation. That's why I said that we have birthright to get the right things, and that's why we are paying tax. So these things that we always put aside, we are putting aside this money, we are doing this, or in the education sector we have done this. It is not something that we need to try. Before we announce on the second thing that we are going to do for our children, number one, we first make sure that we sit down and we go through all the things that needed for this child to get learning material. For example, the CBC we are talking about here now. The things that have been put for a child to have to go for this transition are not enough. If you go back to the public school, I don't want to talk about private because if you go to this private school, they have almost 99.9% of what is being done. But the majority of our children are not going to private school. They may not find money to pay for these private schools. But the public school, that's why I'm here, not because I'm running a private school. I'm here for another child who need to be like me or you in the future. And the transition is yet there while there's no materials to put in place. So I'm just requesting the Ministry of Education that the best thing we need to do, and they need to advise the President, that before we announce this, we have to work it out this way. We have to go back to the Treasury and know how much do we put for the education sector, so that when we are going to announce something, already we put things in place. Before I was called to sit here, I knew there's a chair I'm going to sit on. I'm not going here to stand and talk. Before we go to the new transition, we need to put things in place. If it is swimming pool for the school, because now we are teaching these children, this thing is in the syllabus, but we don't do practical things. We are being told, the child need to know the music. From where? From the reading of the book? We must have a guitar at the school. Do we have one guitar or piano in public school? No. We have public schools, which now we are in the new transition without no Kenya power. And you're still expecting that this child is going to learn as the same as a child in private school, which the owner has put everything in place. When they are going to sit for their national exam, and when they are going to come out to look for other colleges, you will find the children who have been private school are now passing or pursuing good school than other children from the public school. My last word is this. You remember I heard you say here that there was a year that everybody was getting A, which is okay. They wanted to go to these big universities and get. But when they go there, they don't get. When you get A plane and you've been taken to do medicine and you fail in all sciences by truth, not by what was being announced as your result. They are failing and they're coming back. They are all the people now riding motorbikes in the community because they did not perform. They left the university.
All right.
So let me tell you before I finish. I'm finishing. Before I'm finishing. Just give me time because this is a very strong statement that I have to tell my friends here. Before we give anybody, a child, a thing to do, we need to think, what are we giving this child? But this thing, is it going to help this child to be as me or you or the president? So I agree 100% with the transition. Don't mark me wrong.
Okay.
And what I want the government to do now is to go back to the Treasury, find out how we can get money to make things work in a better way. And the teachers who have been complaining about contract, even as we speak, we have some people who finished from 4 last year. They want to do education. They want to go to this college, teachers training college. Where are they going to work if we have not employed this one? And the one that we opted to employ are still under contract. We have to figure out this thing before it goes to a mess.
All right. Let me go to the SecGen straight away, and I'll pick from where exactly he has said. Just a minute. Yes. And he has mentioned in terms of resources. Do you believe that private partnership could bring some sanity, maybe, and improve the education sector in the country? Because I'm looking at collaboration between the government and the private sector in addressing challenges of education by improving infrastructure, teacher training, and also resources. Because as he said, if you're talking about music and the school doesn't even have a guitar, then we are reading from two different scripts, and that is where private institutions like his are a mile ahead of public institutions.
I want to agree with him on the issue of there is no private child. That children are children and they should be given a level playing ground. Part of his corporate social responsibility as an investor in private learning is to support the immediate public school that is near to where his school is. And the only way he can support that school is making available through a proper channeled arrangement for the school that is next to him to enjoy some of these facilities. Some of these facilities, and I'm happy he's saying he's doing, to enjoy some of these facilities that they are having so that it can improve this child who needs this access. And that is where the public-private partnership comes in. The government, in its projection, even as they were talking about the transition to grade 7 and grade 8, remember they did a mapping. And they said the schools that are ready to accept grade 7 and those which were not ready. And there was also this it was more theory, I don't know how practical it was, and that's also something I want to support him on, saying that a school that is picked is placed nearer to maybe a secondary school that has a laboratory or has a home science room or has a workshop, something that these children in the junior secondary grade 7 would access, so that those schools would work into collaboration and make those students work. Even some of the schools that are nearer to the technical training institutes that they could access, and even maybe utilize the resources, even in terms of human resources who are there to assist in building up these children. So it is more said and more quoted, and it would be nice if it would work. Maybe it is streamlining the system so that the private schools can come in to support the public schools. But again, we can also not escape the fact, and that's also another area that I support him, that the government taking its role of providing the basic requirements that are needed to ensure that whatever they are rolling out succeeds. In terms of provision of a guitar, like he's talking about a guitar, which might look very basic. Provision of those. I remember when I went to high school, I went to a high school that when I entered the school, there was a full workshop with the jack planes, with the hacksaws, the tools were there, provided by the government. I remember when the 844 was being rolled out, the schools were provided with this. When 844 was, there were hammers, there were everything, they were provided to this school. It is only that when they were taken to those schools, they became white elephant. They were not being used because people's mind went back to competition. That it is not the practical aspect, it is the passing of what? Of exams. So if we can look at a way in which the government can come in, incorporate the leadership of private institutions. They are good, they are very supportive. Some of the schools are very supportive. The government comes in and incorporate them in ensuring that they succeed in their programs in a well-structured and well-managed way. Then I think some of the challenges the public schools are facing will be something that can be done. When we talk about transition at grade 9, going to senior school, and this is where my friend was talking about development of talents. And we have the pathways that we have, the arts, the STEM sciences, and then we have the talent development. When we think about this, then we look at even the existing secondary schools now and the facilities they have. Then the secondary schools can be mapped in such a way that if these ones have this facility, then transition to grade 9, these ones will take students whose interests go to this area. That one, and it will be very easy. So that mapping, and it should be done in good time. We only have one lull year of 2025, and then 2026 we'll have already people transiting to
Yeah.
So that proper planning, early planning, so that nobody sleeps in class, so that we have proper planning for the transition. And that is where now every other stakeholder should come out, we should discuss, and we should support positively. And the government, where we all belong, I said, but they are the key drivers, the cog, should come in and appreciate that everybody has a role to play. Public participation is not a one-off thing that they did and they cannot do again. It is important that even now, as we are moving towards the next level of conversation, what do we need to do? Bringing in stakeholders maybe in the year now, we are in the year 2024, bringing us back and saying, now here is where we are. What else do we need to do right? Let us take it, and I think he was short of saying it, that education is a live project. Something live means that you, at any time, you can grow it in whichever area that you feel growth is needed. So let us look at the situation whereby we can still come back, have a conversation, and see what we need to improve. I think that one also will bring in our brothers in the public sector, who are, private sector, who have invested, to see what quality addition we can bring into education.
Indeed, and I'm still going to pose the same question to you, Bwana Chair, because I believe partnerships, if we only just leave education sector to the government, we will not actualize exactly what we want, and we won't better the education standards in the country. But when we have a private-public partnership, I believe that's a way to go. But unfortunately, I've noted, and I actually saw in news, where parents and students and some teachers blame the head teacher for the poor performance in schools, and they have ejected, I think it's 2 or 3 schools yesterday who did that, parents actually. I'd like you to respond to that, being the chair of the Parents Teachers Association.
Thank you. I want to begin from where I stopped, because I've been quiet for a long time. One, I want to say that during the task force formation and participation, we as parents were not involved. We didn't sit in the board, just like the way my colleagues did. And we thought that it was also wise that we didn't sit in, so we could get the views of the task force, which came out. As parents, we gave our views, and actually they heavily borrowed on what we gave in the task force. Almost 3/4 of what we gave as parents is what's now being implemented by the government. We are saying that reforms are very crucial. And with the reforms in CBC, there are changes. Parents have accepted that the changes are coming, and they are seeing the fruits that are coming, positive fruits. And we ought to be encouraging now the parents to make sure that CBC succeeds. We don't compare the present and the past. We say the past is gone, the new is coming. So we go by the new and say, let us now support the government in place to have CBC succeed. That will be very good. The president has committed himself on supporting CBC, and he has said, and that's why even there's money being sent to schools. Whether it's building houses or not, that's not our business, because we also need the houses. I will say that. There are parents in slums who live in very poor kind of conditions. Even if you give them very good education with their children in slums, you can see me coming, I'm the chair of parents, I live in a very good house. When my neighbor's child in the slums sees that I'm coming from a good house with my child, and he or she's coming from a very poor house in the slums, you know, even if the child goes to class, there's that kind of comparison. That why can you also get a better house there? Like the chairman's daughter or son. So when it comes to the issues of houses, that's the work for the government. We leave the government going with that one. But in the education sector, we are saying that, as you say, we need teamwork. And teamwork, where we get it from that, the private sector plays a very big role in the supplementary education in this country. If we didn't have the private sector, the private schools in this country, I can assure you we will be having billions and billions of children out of school. And we'll be having a very difficult moment in this country, because we'll be having youth that have not gone to school, and they'll be like hooligans now, causing trouble. So we need to work as the government to be very close, to work in the close terms with the private sector, and even to borrow from the private sector, to learn from them, just like the way the private sector is also learning from the government. That partnership must come in. We as Parents Association right now, we are very much willing to work with the private school sector. You know, I want to say this clearly, that Parents Association is the National Parents Association of Kenya. It is not the National Public Parents Association of Kenya. So we talk about every parent, and then we don't have a private child or a public child. We have a Kenyan child, because we are all the government. So I say that teamwork is very important, that the Ministry of Education or the government should work closely with the private sector. The government should work closely with the parents, because parents own schools. And when they are left out, like in this task force committee, the parents didn't sit in. And when you fail to sit in a committee like that one, and you own schools, somebody else is talking on your behalf and you're not there. It's like somebody going to negotiate dowry for your wife and you don't know how much money you are ready to pay yourself. That's very dangerous. So because they brought our views now and we're not there, we were very happy that what we gave was taken on board and it's now being implemented. So that's very much okay. When you talk about the issues of CBC, I want to clear on this and be very clear that CBC has picked up. And there is no way we can go back because 844 was like a thorn in the flesh. And that's where the reforms came about. We remember that 844 system was exam-oriented. And students would stay in the class and get A's. And those A's would not take them anywhere because international community will not allow such students to go and work in the what? In the private firms even. For example, right now, you are asking me about the issue of parents going to schools and evicting principals. First of all, I want to say that those are not parents. Those are hooligans. Those are not parents. I represent parents, and they always seek advice from my office before they can take.
But we have seen some of them actually even interviewed, and they say that indeed my kids scored.
Use them right? This is own this. I'm parent so and so or what? You only saw people on motorbikes. Those are border borders. So I want to tell you the truth.
But it has happened. Okay, Bwana Section. Let's assume it's a genuine. Let's assume. Just a minute. Let's assume it's a genuine case of parents have ejected.
I understand what you're saying.
It's a bit.
Let's assume. I will assume that I'll say I'm assuming maybe they were parents, but for me, I will also say that they're not parents because I saw.
Are you telling me in your desk you've never received such a complaint that a teacher was ejected by parents because of poor performance?
I'm coming to that. I saw what happened. And we as parents, we really questioned, how can a whole lot of 48,000 students get E's in schools where there are trained teachers, where there are trained principals, where there are boards of management, and where there are parents? So, whom do we blame first? We have to ask the parents, for all the 4 years, what efforts did they make if they knew that that principal was not performing before now to go and try to work with him closely? We are asking parents to take schools, to take schools and own them and advise on where things are going wrong. Not wait when they are wrong, then they now speak. Like now, if the E's have been got in those schools, even if you go there and send away the principals, will you change those E's? You can't change them. But had the parents worked together as a committee with the principals before that, there could have been a solution. So these are the things we are saying, that let the government also involve parents and even the private sector and even the teacher unions and other, even the NGOs in the education reforms, work together and change some of these things. I will tell you, there is nothing as embarrassing as I saw in a school called Isongo Secondary School in Kakamega.
Yes.
Where a principal was being carried like a piece of paper by hooligans, not even parents. It was very serious. This is an officer, a very senior officer of the government, who has been employed in that work in that institution. Parents, principals don't do exams.
All right, because of the interest of time.
Yes.
I'm quite sure you've received these complaints where a teacher has been ejected.
Yes.
How have you addressed that as PTA?
I have addressed this in the media, and even in this media here yesterday. I said in news here and said that those people taking law into their hands to go and evict principals and teachers from schools, should stop that with immediate effect. Secondly, I said that the Minister of Education should intervene quickly, and even the Minister of Internal Security, to make sure that principals and teachers are protected. And if there are issues that need to be addressed on the ground where those issues are arose, let the stakeholders come together. Parents come together with the principals and the Minister of Education officers and parents, we, National Parents Association, we sit together and understand what is the cause of this. We can have a better solution than the people taking law into hands to harass officers.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if it's a principal is ejected, where do you want us to take this principal? Because even if he's taken to another school, that school might bring issues in regards to that. Maybe you can add your voice as you wrap up.
Yes, I want to add my voice and say that I saw a circular that was released by the Ministry of Education. And the circular was clearly talking about this issue of arrests in schools because of results. And the ministry was so concerned, they were saying that that should not happen and that there is a better channel of airing grievances than doing what they are doing. And that process should be followed in case of airing. So it is shameful. Even I, as a parent, now if I would remove the tag of being a teacher or a tag of being a trade unionist, I think it would be very demeaning for me to do something to somebody which I would not wish that it would be done to me.
Yes.
Because even where I am, I'm also accountable to people. Even if you're a policeman, you're accountable to people. Even if you're a border rider, you're accountable to people. The kind of demeanor that you'd want to be given, you'd want not to be given, to be done to, should not be done to the other person. There are better ways of handling matters of administration. And two, results of the school, and I want to put it very clearly, do not belong to the head teacher of the school. The results belong to the stakeholders of the school, where when we talk about the stakeholders, it means we have the teaching fraternity, we have the parents fraternity, we have the people who give input, and we have the students themselves. The results belong to all of them. Community. So it is the community. So they should discuss the challenges that they have, and that is why in every school we have two levels of organizations, of administrations that can also be queried. We have the board of management. The board is an appointed body by the government to look at things on behalf of the government. Then we have his organization, the Parents Teachers Association, which also assists in running to ensure that that school have everything that they need. Then we have the teachers there, and then we have the students with a students' body there. So I don't think that the head teacher should be the most great sinner in that school if we don't look at the structure of managing the school. So if there is anything that every other person thinks about the grievances that they are facing in school, and let it not be geared towards the results of exams only. It is even because the results of exams is not the end. We have the way of producing the product. If you feel that the quality of the quality of the way education is being given in that school is wanting, address that issue before you go to the exams and wait for the results and then you. So it is a whole process of how the results have been generated. The teaching, the provision of the required tools, the capacity of teachers, the infrastructure that are needed, lesson attendance by the students themselves to come to school. Look at everything and look that everything is put in place so that you look at the end product. So it is not the end product that should count.
All right.
So everybody should be accountable.
All right. And as we wrap up, Ben, we are looking at CBC being the feeder to universities and tertiary education. How do we empower TVETs? Because even when you look at the jobs, international jobs available now, they need technical expertise. And the universities, we are churning out close to 50,000 every year, and the jobs are quite limited. How do we empower TVETs to ensure that somebody can be self-reliant even after completing CBC and tertiary education?
I think the good thing is that at one point, I think the current president, when he was in higher education, he was pro-TVET, and it's a good thing that now he's in a position whereby he can continue championing for this. Because at one point, the universities had swallowed up the TVETs, and everyone was going to do a degree. Remember the analogy I gave on the 2005 class. There has to be the TVETs that are very well resourced in terms of developing skills. We are talking about the CBC at the basic education, but then at the higher education, my prayer is that we are having a similar conversation to harmonize the skills vis-a-vis the market, what the market needs. For example, we are talking and we are seeing of AI, many things are happening, changes in the ICT world, and the jobs are shifting. So we have to take into account these changes as we build the society. So I presume that we are having a conversation at that level, both at the TVETs and at the university level. So we need to come up with the courses, rationalize. If there are courses we have to do away with because they are obsolete, we have to do away with them. We can't be having courses that are obsolete, taking up a lot of resources within the sector. Just to talk on the parents, I know but the guys have been hit.
I think they might have a right to reply, but unfortunately you don't have one here. But indeed,
so I think those people, were they parents? If they are parents, I presume they are in the current generation and they went to school. So if they went to school, okay, Martin Luther King said that the function of education is to teach someone to think intensively and critically. Of course, there has to be some intelligence in someone who has gone to school with a character. It is very wrong for a parent to wait when results are around, have just come, then you go shouting and bullying teachers, because you are demotivating the whole entire workforce in the education sector.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and because of the interest of time, allow Newton to wrap it up for us. How do you circumvent or work around these challenges that we have in the education sector so that we may strengthen CBC? Because as we say, the train has already left the station, to ensure that even afterwards, anybody who has gone through CBC can even later in life enjoy himself in his own work, not necessarily depend on others or even depend on the white-collar jobs.
No, I think the CBC is just good. The problem is that the implementation, as we have been saying here all along. My school, I want to talk on behalf of my school. Already we set the computer lab, we set the workshop. We had all those things that we need for the CBC learning, and I'm very happy to tell my constituents and the schools around my school that we'll put them in our programs. We are even doing good in agriculture. We have a place for the agriculture learning because it's a subject in the curriculum. But what I want to add is this about the issue we saw about the parents going and harass the principals and deputy principal in school. I was not happy to see it happening all over. And it's very unfortunate that even my next school where I went in primary was experiencing the same when the parents gang and send away the Njue teacher and the principal, being of the lack of good performance. Somehow the teachers or the principal did something wrong, which I don't even know. But I think before, when I went to school, we had this...
All right, we're running out of time.
Yeah, we had these inspectors who are coming to class and go through when the teacher is teaching so that they can know and rate how the teacher is teaching. I think the ministry should do the same now so that we can know and rate our teachers. Anyway, because of interest of time, we are requesting the Ministry of Education to take education as a key than any other projects running. And if you do it so, we are going to have a better country in the future.
I couldn't agree more. Actually, it's the highest budget that we have, over 600 billion, and of course other supplementary budget, but we are not still there yet. But when we work together, I'm quite sure we're going to improve the education standards in the country. Just in my immediate left, Newton Ogada is also a philanthropist and also director of God Will Provide. Just next to him, we have Benson Macero, who is an educationist, and next to him, we have Silas. Just next to him, we have, beg your pardon, Hesbon Otieno, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, or if you like, NAT. Just next to him, we have Silas Obuhatsa. David, I've gotten it right today, who is the chairperson of the Parents Teachers Association. My name is Bentro Njue. Lensa Odingo has been our sign language interpreter. Let's continue this conversation on social media. Do have yourself a blessed afternoon. Paving way for Kurunzi Mashinani and Tamrini.
Habari njema kutoka redio yako pendwa ya Ingo FM kwa wakazi na mashabiki wa Bungoma. Sasa Ingo FM inasikika Ingo Bungoma kupitia masafa ya 103.5 FM. Sikiliza na uchangie, burudika ukifurahia uhondo wa kipekee kwa lugha ya nyumbani.
Awamu ya Baraga UCC, natural sweetness.
Kadhalika, tegea Ingo FM ukiwa maeneo ya Kakamega, Busia, Vihiga na Trans Nzoia kupitia 101.5 FM.
Isenikoli umwana wa kwendo mkhana wa imoni dalano mbonyala kunanga KK.
Ingo FM, ininginingi ye Muitala.